The pseudocode starts with when the order button is clicked. This indicates that we should add our code in the submit order method. Then we need to get the checked state from the checkbox. In order to call any methods on a view in the view hierarchy, we need to first find view by ID. So the first thing I need to do is assign a view ID to this checkbox view. In Android Studio, in the activity main layout, I'm going to find the checkbox view. Since my cursor is here, it highlights this view in the preview. Then I'm going to add a line to assign a view ID to this view. Now in the Java code, I can refer to this view and then try to extract the state from it. Let's go into the main activity. I'm going to put my code in the submit order method. I know that I need to find the checkbox Java object in the view hierarchy. I start by creating a variable, whipped cream checkbox, with data type checkbox. Then I can call the findViewById method within the activity. This will find a view based on the given ID. I'm going to pass in the ID r.id.whippedcream_checkbox, which I just assigned in the other layout file. This gives me an error immediately because the required type is checkbox, because this is what the variable on the left-hand side is. However, the return value of this method is of type view. So just like we learned earlier, we need to cast the return value of this method. I'm going to cast it to be a checkbox object. The reason why I can cast it is because checkbox is a subclass of view. Okay, now I have the checkbox Java object that represents the checkbox in the UI. In order to figure out whether the box is checked or not, I need to call a method on the object. You may not know which method to call on the checkbox object, and that's perfectly fine, so you can just Google search for it. Search for checkbox Android. I'm going to click on the first link. And to reinforce what I mentioned earlier, checkbox is a subclass of view. There's other views in between, but ultimately it's still a subclass of view. This class overview is kind of interesting because it has some Java code here. It has this line of code which we already have in our app. We're doing findViewById, given an ID, and then getting a checkbox object back. This next line is even more interesting. It says checkbox, which is the name of this variable, .isChecked. This looks like a method call with no input arguments. This appears to be telling us whether the box is checked or not and returning a true or false value, but let's check the checkboxes guide to be sure. Let's scroll through this. We see some checkbox XML code and then some more Java code. This method looks like it's called when the checkbox is clicked. This method name matches the method name specified in the XML. I'm assuming that the view that is being passed in is the checkbox view, and we cast it to a checkbox, and then we also call isChecked. And the return value is a Boolean. The comment also describes it further. It says, is the view now checked? So I think this is exactly what we need. Let's try to use the method isChecked. First, we type the variable name of the checkbox object. It's whipped cream checkbox. Then I add a dot to call a method on it. I can start typing isChecked, and it pops up here. So I can hit enter to use this suggestion. On the right-hand side here, it says what the return value of this method is, and it says it returns a Boolean. So after I use this suggestion, I'm going to go to the left-hand side of this method call, and then I'm going to store this result in a Boolean variable. I'm going to call this Boolean variable hasWhippedCream, then hit enter. To recap, we're calling a method on the whipped cream checkbox Java object, and the method is called isChecked. This has a return value of a Boolean, and it's being stored on the left-hand side here in this variable called hasWhippedCream. This completes the first task. I also mentioned that you could log this variable so you could verify that you're on the right path. So on the next line, I'm going to add a log message. The first argument is a tag name, and I'm just going to use the name of our class, which is main activity. Then I'm going to put my own message. I'm going to say hasWhippedCream, and then add in the Boolean variable. By concatenating this string here with the Boolean variable, it will turn this Boolean value into a string as well. So then the text will say hasWhippedCream true or hasWhippedCream false. Now let's run the app on our device and check that this is actually printing out the right log message. I increase the size of the log window using this control here. Now when I click on the whipped cream checkbox and then hit the order button, I'll expect to see a message down here that says hasWhippedCream true or false. I'm going to scroll this over so I can see the actual message. Okay. Let's see if this works. I'm going to check this box and then hit order. Okay, I think a new message got printed out. And it says main activity has whipped cream true. That's correct because the checkbox is checked. If I uncheck this box and then hit the order button, I expect it to say false. And scroll to the right again, and it says has whipped cream false. Okay, so it looks like our code is correct so far for finding the checkbox view and then getting the check state out of it. Now let's continue to the second task. Okay, now we need to pass this Boolean variable into the order summary method. If I want to pass another argument into the create order summary method, I'll just add a comma here and then pass the variable has whipped cream. Immediately I get an error that says it can't be applied to the method create order summary because that just expects an integer parameter. So let's scroll down to where create order summary is declared. Now I need to modify the method signature of the create order summary method. Instead of taking in one input parameter, it needs to take in two. So I'm going to add a comma and then specify the second parameter. The data type should be a Boolean, and I'm going to call it add whipped cream. You can call the input parameter whatever name you want, but I just want to show you that this name does not have to match this name here. Since we modified the method signature here, we have to update the Java doc as well to specify what this input parameter is about. Okay, that completes the second task. The third task is to change the order summary text to include whether or not the user wants whipped cream. Essentially, that means we need to use this input parameter here to modify our order summary message. In the screenshot, the whipped cream topping line appeared below the name, so let's add a new line here. I'm going to type out price message plus equals to modify the existing price message, and then add the line add whipped cream. I'm going to add a space and then add the Boolean variable. Again, I can concatenate a string literal with a Boolean value, and this will turn this whole thing into a string. Cool, now let's try it on our device. If I click on this checkbox and then click on the order button, it should say add whipped cream topping true. And it does, except again, I forgot the new line character. So I need to modify that now. Well, since I'm here, I should just check the other case. So I'm going to uncheck this box and then hit the order button. And it says false. So it's correctly reflecting the state of the checkbox. Now let's add the new line character and run the app again. If I click the checkbox and then hit the order button, then it says true. If I uncheck it and then click on order, it says false. Awesome. That handles both cases. The later parts of this task were easier because once we verified in the logs that we were getting the right checked state, it was only a matter of showing it on the screen. Since things are working inside the app, now I can remove the log message because it's not needed anymore. And then run the app one final time. Okay, great work. Let's move on to the next task.